Hey, welcome to Dating Advice for Men Who Love Women. The men who are the most successful with women in the world all share one specific trait. And the really good news about that for us is that it's something that we can all work on and develop within ourselves. It's not something that's just set in stone or that you're necessarily born with. It's a quality that we can work on. And so, what is this one trait that the most successful men with women in the world all share? Well, it's just they handle it well when a woman is upset with them. And that starts out with the very first time that happens. It's critical the first and second time this happens when you're connecting with a woman. And it extends all the way through a long term romantic relationship with a woman, even once you've been with her for 50 years. And so, this is a very important trait and skill that we should work on because it makes you happier and more successful with women. And honestly, it's actually part of kind of a bigger theme of that the most attractive men in the world are able to hold their frame better with women. And so a woman doesn't knock him off his path very easily. And this is one subset, kind of one example of that, but it's a very important one. And if you are interacting with a woman and she does have some attraction to you, or she is at least a little bit interested in you, she will eventually probably become upset with you at some point. And the first time that happens is actually a big opportunity for us to show her who you are as a man and to add value to her life and to be a more attractive and valuable choice for her to be with. And this will actually help you whether you're just going for hookups or you want to be in a committed long-term relationship with the right woman for you. So it's a critical thing for us to work on, and it can make your life a lot easier when it comes to dealing with women. And so in this presentation, I'm going to give you 6 tips that will help you deal with it when a woman is upset with you better. And again, it's something that we can keep working on. Now, here's the thing. I first noticed this pattern watching a lot of dating and relationship reality TV. And of course, as you probably know, I fully understand that dating reality TV is not really that close to reality necessarily. Those shows are very heavily edited. They might be fully or at least partially scripted. We don't really know exactly what the dynamics are behind the scenes. So it's not exactly real life, right? Of course. However, it is a good way to look at some aspects of male-female dynamics, and if you study those shows through the right filters, you can pick up some stuff that is actually true in real life. And one of the truths that you can pick up on if you watch a lot of dating and relationship reality shows, and I'm not recommending that you do that, I'm just saying if you do, you'll pick this up eventually if you're paying attention, is that the guys who are the most attractive, and by that I don't mean good looking, because sometimes the best looking guy on one of these shows also has this trait, and sometimes he doesn't, and he does worse because he doesn't have that. And a guy who's maybe a little bit less physically attractive becomes the most attractive, interesting guy on the show with the most women interested in him, or a woman staying interested in him the longest, because he has this trait and because he holds his frame so well. And so one of the most important factors on these shows and in real life is how the guys handle it when the woman he's interested in gets upset with him for the first time, and also later on the second time and throughout his relationship with her as well. This is a critical aspect of male-female dynamics and interacting with a woman that you have high interest in. And it really only matters when you have high interest, right? So that's the thing. You have some stakes there. It's higher pressure. There's more opportunity there represented by the feelings that you have, which are higher. And so it gets harder to do this the more we have interest in a woman, but that's the only time when it really matters. And no matter how high their interest is in a woman, the most successful guys handle it really well, even though they have high interest, when that woman is upset with him. And that's where we want to get, because that's going to make you more successful. And that's the whole point of this presentation. And again, it's not about looks. This is one of those equalizing traits where a woman can be interested in a guy because he looks good to her, and then she can quickly lose interest because he doesn't handle it well when she gets upset with him the first time or when they have some little thing that goes wrong. And if you handle it well, let's say she has just a little bit of interest in you to start, and you handle this well, that can raise her interest a lot. So this is a really important thing to kind of take a look at and develop within ourselves. And so what do these really attractive guys do when a woman they really like is upset with them? Well, let's start out with what the kind of less successful guys do. The guys who kind of end up losing the woman's interest, they tend to freak out a little bit when she's not fully validating him, when she gets upset with him, and they start fearing that she's not going to like him romantically anymore. I think the biggest difference between the guys who are more successful and the guys who are less successful when it comes to this is just that fear of losing her. So the guys who are really successful separate her romantic interest from her being temporarily upset with him, because he knows that it's a long-term thing and it's normal in the course of dating and a relationship for the woman to get upset with you sometimes for some reason. It's probably gonna happen. And he doesn't translate that into a severe fear of losing her. He might feel it a little bit, but not nearly as much as the less successful guys. And those guys let that fear of losing her drive the way they behave instead of what they actually should do. That's the most attractive thing to do, and actually the best thing to do for the relationship if you want it to continue. Because if she loses interest in you, then there's no relationship to worry about anyway. And I think that's the key point here. And so what do those less successful guys do? Well, because they're afraid that her being upset means that she's going to lose romantic interest, which is actually not how it works, they start chasing after her to try to make up for it and to not lose her. So not to really use kind of playing games here, but they start kind of playing not to lose instead of playing to win, for lack of a better way to say it. And when you start doing that, that's when you start to really erode a woman's interest level in you, because she picks up on that behavior and that lowers her interest. And so the guys who are less successful, like a woman gets upset with them and then they start like kind of chasing her around the house and like, where is she? I need to resolve this right in this moment. Because of that fear that her being upset means that she's going to lose romantic interest, which is actually not really related, because the way you handle it affects her interest level or not. And here's the thing. If you actually do something that's an actual deal breaker for a woman and her interest does go down because of this and it's all the way at zero, there's nothing you can do to bring that back anyway. So now you're just chasing and losing self-respect. So it doesn't ever work. It's never a good play to chase after her just because she gets upset with you. Because again, if she's upset about something that doesn't affect her interest level in you, your behavior of kind of chasing her around and being worried about it might, or I might say will, lower her interest in you at that point. And if she lost all of her interest in you, then there's nothing you can do anyway. And let's say she lost a little bit of romantic interest in you over what she's upset with you about, and then you chase her, now it's going to drop her interest level even more. And so when your instinct is to like, oh gosh, I'm going to lose her, let's go chase, every single time you feel that, whether you've been with a woman for 10 seconds or 100 years, instead you should pull back and wait and take action later. And again, this is the biggest difference between the guys who lose a woman's interest and the ones who are successful throughout these shows and in real life as well. And so here's the thing. It's not that the guys who are successful and attractive don't ever deal with it, and they're just nonchalant and never take any action and never resolve something with a woman. They just give it a little more time and space, and they don't act on the fear of losing her so much. That's the biggest difference. And actually, to be honest, the guys who are more attractive and handle this better, not all the time, but a lot of times they tend to be even better listeners and more empathetic in a real way towards her and what she's experiencing. And we're going to get to that when I talk about how we should handle it when a woman gets upset with us, especially for the first time. And so let's get into the 6 tips of how to handle it when a woman gets upset with you so that you can be more like these really attractive, successful guys and not have to worry about losing a woman's romantic interest in you the first time she ever gets upset with you. And so here are 6 quick tips on how to handle it when a woman gets upset with you, especially if it's for the first time. And these all apply whether you want to attract a woman for one night or for a lifetime. And it still applies even after you're with a woman for 25 years. So here we go. Tip number 1. Again, do not chase after her. There's a lot of times where your kind of natural instincts will be begging you to chase after a woman because you're afraid of losing her. And that almost always lowers a woman's interest and respect for you. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to chase. Let go of that. Use courage to kind of let go of that. Be confident in your connection and realize that if her interest is all the way down at 0, there's nothing you can do anyway. So in that case, you're preserving your self-respect. But if she does have some interest left, we don't want to crush it even further down. So resist your urge to chase her. That's number 1. And the most successful attractive guys do this consistently. That's the biggest difference in this case. So do not chase after her. And then number 2, don't take her feelings into yourself. This is actually really interesting. You can go super deep into this about what it means to have boundaries and not be codependent and have a healthy relationship. And it does go into that sphere very quickly in this scenario. It's actually a good test for how kind of a healthy relationship will look over time. But basically, you want to have a solid boundary between you and her. And it's not that you're giving her permission or something, but you're kind of allowing her to feel upset. You're not trying to minimize that or deny it or to kind of make her feel differently. You fully are allowing her to experience what she's experiencing, and you can be empathetic towards it and realize, oh, she's feeling very upset right now. And maybe it is something you did wrong. And we'll talk about that in the 6th tip about how to handle that. But she's feeling something. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to feel the same thing. You don't need to go into those same feelings with her. You have the way you feel about things, and there's the way she feels about things, and you don't have to try to match her. You keep your own frame about how you're feeling. And you can feel it all. Maybe you actually are feeling afraid that she might lose interest in you. There's nothing wrong with that feeling, and you should be able to feel that feeling fully. It's okay. It's totally normal. But your actions shouldn't be dictated by that feeling is the point. So go ahead and let that feeling course through your body if you want. And then take a deep breath and realize, like, that doesn't mean I have to chase after her and take that wrong action. That's going to make things worse. So again, this doesn't mean that you're denying her feelings or not understanding that she's feeling a specific way or giving her permission to feel something. It's just you're acknowledging that she feels a specific way, but you're not necessarily matching those feelings. You're going to feel what you feel and let her feel what she feels, if that makes sense. So don't take her feelings into yourself. Remain in your own body and your own frame and have a boundary there. And again, that applies from the very first time you have this kind of conflict with the woman all the way through your relationship with her. Remain in yourself as much as you can. And then number 3, don't react. Don't just do the first thing that your body's telling you to do because you're afraid of losing her, as we've been talking about. Resist that. Let yourself feel it. Pull back a little bit and kind of wait a little bit because you're going to handle it better after 2 minutes of letting that feeling kind of go through you and pass on a little bit than you are right in that moment where it's like, oh my gosh, we better chase after her now. She's going to lose all of her interest in us. We got to resolve it right away. That's not the case, and it doesn't help. So don't react. You want to respond appropriately. So you're not just going to do nothing forever. You're going to respond. You're just not going to be reactionary and react. You're going to be non-reactive. Being non-reactive is one of the most attractive male qualities possible. And again, that doesn't mean you don't respond. It means you're just not being really reactive and doing every single thing that your emotions are trying to tell you to do all the time. So the most attractive men don't react. And we're not going to react from now on when this happens either. And then next, number 4, let her cool off a bit and or come back toward you and or vent to you as much as she wants. So let her get it all out. When she eventually does come back to you and starts talking to you about what she's upset about, just let her get it all out. And don't try to resist it or change her feelings or say that she shouldn't feel that way or anything like that. Again, let her feel what she feels too. So you're not going to take in her feelings, but you're going to let her feel the way she feels. You're not going to try to resist it, and you're going to let her kind of come back toward you. And if she doesn't, you can go to her to resolve it, but you don't want to chase immediately. So wait a little bit, let it calm down a little bit, and hopefully she'll come back toward you to resolve it. Even if she's still upset and is expressing that, that's still her coming towards you. And it's a really good sign because that means she's there to resolve it with you. Even if she seems very upset, it's not necessarily a bad thing in general over the long term, depending on how you react to that and how you respond. So let everything calm down a little bit before you try to respond and resolve it. And again, you might have to go to her. That's okay after you let some time pass, let things cool off a little bit, and let yourself feel like you're in a little stronger position before you resolve it with her. So pull back and wait a little bit, and then respond and resolve it. And hopefully, she'll come back toward you, even if she's kind of seeming aggressive and upset. It's still better than if you chased her around the house and tried to resolve it immediately because you're afraid of losing her. So let her come back toward you as much as you can. And then number 5, again, consider her feelings and listen to her. You know what's really interesting? These guys, like, even though they're really cool about these situations and they don't chase her around the house, when they do finally have a discussion, he's actively listening to her most of the time. Most of these guys are very good listeners, actually. If you take a closer look, these guys who are attractive, they consider what she's saying strongly, even more than the guy who's reactionary and chasing her around, because he doesn't actually want to know what she's feeling or resolve it. He's just afraid that he's going to lose her and wants to resolve it for his side. So it's actually the other guy's more empathetic over the long term because he lets his side kind of go and tries to see her point of view and what she's saying and why she got upset, at least for a second. So he tends to take this in really well. And so just listen to her. If she's kind of upset with you and she's kind of aggressively talking to you because she's upset and she's emotional, that means she's still there in that connection with you, in that relationship with you. She's not leaving you. You see, even if she's coming at you aggressively, she's still coming at you, if that makes sense, right? So don't take it as like, this is a loss of her romantic interest. If she didn't have any romantic interest in you, she wouldn't care to resolve it with you anyway, because she doesn't care about you anymore or how it goes with you, right? So it's still, in terms of her romantic interest, a positive sign, even if she seems to be being aggressive and upset with you and talking to you in kind of a not really soft way. And the most successful guys at some level, at least subconsciously, realize that. So they realize what it really is in the background. If she was so upset with you that she never wanted to see you again and she lost all of her interest in you, she wouldn't try to resolve it with you and she wouldn't be yelling at you, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that she should yell or be aggressive or kind of abusive towards you verbally. I'm not talking about that. There's obviously some kinds of behavior that you shouldn't tolerate. I'm talking about a normal amount of an emotional reaction towards you is actually positive in terms of her romantic interest because she's trying to resolve it with you, and that means she's going forward with you and she wants to take care of it. Because if she had no romantic interest, she wouldn't care about that anymore, if that makes sense. And so kind of separate this from her romantic interest. A woman being upset with you does not necessarily mean her romantic interest has been affected at all. In fact, again, the first or second time this happens, those are opportunities for you to raise her interest, potentially, actually. That's the reality. So kind of relax into that. And again, consider her feelings and listen to her. Show her some empathy here. Instead of trying to be defensive and defend yourself, open up a little bit and see what she's experiencing from her point of view. Don't just assume you know why she's upset. Let her explain it to you and really listen and see if you can pick up something. And be empathetic in those moments. So be a good listener when she comes to you, even if she's talking kind of aggressively, because again, she's talking to you. And of course, this is important whether you know her for one day or for a lifetime. And it gets more important the more your relationship progresses. You should actually listen to her even more the longer you've been with her. Just take it all in. And then you're going to respond to that. You're not going to react. You're not going to be defensive. You're going to respond because you still have your reality and it's your place to express that too. But we should do it in a way that's effective for you and for the relationship. And so, first, take in what she's upset about and listen to her. And then, lastly, number 6, if you actually did something wrong and you agree with that, apologize sincerely. Hey, I messed up. I did this thing. Here's what I'm going to do about it in the future. It won't happen again. That part is key. Like, what are you going to do differently next time? Make sure to add that if that's appropriate. So if you actually did something wrong and that's why she's upset, be like, yeah, I understand why you're upset. I apologize. I'll do this next time. It won't happen again. And then make sure your behaviors match up with that reason why she's upset and not doing it again. So that's how you handle it. If you actually did something wrong, just be like, yeah, I apologize. I was wrong there. Here's what I'm going to do next time. I don't want it to happen to you again. On the other hand, if you actually didn't do anything wrong and you're 100% sure about that, hold your ground and do not apologize. Because even if she didn't kind of plan it consciously, that's a test. And you pass that test by holding your frame. And you can even say something like, I understand that you see it that way. I see it this way. I don't really feel like I did anything wrong. And I definitely don't want you to feel bad. But my perspective is I was doing it for this reason. And I don't really feel like I did anything wrong. Something like that. So again, if you know that you did something wrong and that's why she's upset, apologize sincerely with some kind of thing about the future of how it's not going to happen again and what you're specifically going to do differently. And if you know for a fact that you did nothing wrong, just hold your ground and acknowledge her feelings, but don't let that get into your frame and start making you doubt yourself and start making you respect yourself less. And a good woman will respect you more if you apologize appropriately without groveling if necessary, and when you hold your ground when you should. And the most successful men with women in the world handle it this way. And now you have kind of a better idea of how to handle it when a woman gets upset with you, especially for the first and second time. And again, start looking at that as an opportunity to raise her interest and to make your relationship stronger versus something to fear, because it's probably going to happen at some point. And now we can be fully ready for it. And we're going to be one of those successful, attractive men. And if you want to take all of this further and you want to attract the right woman for you and build a great relationship with her and make sure that she actually falls and stays in love with you as long as you want to be with her, then make sure you grab the Attract and Keep Her system right now if you haven't already. I get a lot of comments from guys that email me and saying like, hey, I just got your system finally. I've listened to your content on YouTube for 5 years and I finally got the book. I'm so glad I got it and I wish I would have gotten it sooner. Because yes, I put out as much content as I can for free for you to learn as much as possible about this area, because I genuinely want you to be happy and successful. I'm doing this as a mission. When I started out, my mission was to help 100,000 men around the world improve the way that they relate to women and to have better dating lives and better relationships. That's why I started this. And so I really care about that, and I'm genuinely here to help. And so I put out as much stuff as I can for free, of course. However, I made this system for a reason. When you go through this system, the information in it is packaged in a systemic way that's kind of step by step that isn't available anywhere else. And so if you like the content that I put out, I highly recommend getting Attract and Keep Her right now and going through it as soon as possible, because there's a reason why it exists. And once you go through it, you'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done this sooner. And even if you're not really looking for a relationship right now, it's a really good book to go through so that you know how the whole process goes, because you never know. You could really not be interested in a relationship right now. And then you wake up tomorrow and you go out and you bump into a woman in line for coffee and you think like, oh, wow, this woman has something different. And you take her out on a date and it goes really well. And you're like, man, I really think maybe she could be the one. You never know when that's going to happen. And you want to be ready for that. And again, you can get a lot of the bits and pieces from everything that I put out. But there's a big reason why this system exists. And I know that it's going to serve you. And I know that you're not going to regret it. And you're going to wish that you went through it sooner if you haven't already gotten it. So, again, if you like my content, I highly recommend that you grab your copy of Attract and Keep Her today and start going through it. And so if you're interested in that, go to attractandkeepher.com/system. That's attractandkeepher.com/system. And of course, if you're not looking for a relationship right now and you're just going for hookups and you want to do that in an ethical way and also protect yourself in that process and make sure everything's good for both you and the women you're dating, then we have a system for that as well. It's called the Good Guy Guide. And inside the Good Guy Guide, we go over exactly what to do from the first second you meet a woman until she's at your place or you're at her place, and even how to escalate it from there in a way that's really smooth and provides a good experience for you and the women that you're dating. So if that's what you're looking for right now, then go to datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com/GGG. That's datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com/GGG. And of course, in addition to the videos and audio that we have on our YouTube and Spotify channels, for example, we have a website that is full of free content as well, including free courses and free ebooks. And you can get all of that by going to datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com. That's datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com. Thank you so much for checking out this presentation. From now on, the first time a woman gets upset with you, no matter how much you like her, you're going to handle that situation smoothly. And after that, she's probably going to like you more.